Hey guys, I am here with another video. Today I will be doing a book talk over Trials of Apollo, the first book, The Hidden Oracle by Rick Riordan. For those of you who do not know what a book this is, it takes place in the Percy Jackson world. It is a completely new series by Rick Riordan, and it follows the god Apollo, who is now a mortal, and his shenanigans in trying to save the oracles. It's fantastic. So I just want to say that reading from Apollo is an extremely interesting point of view to read from, especially with him being mortal, and I thought he was absolutely hilarious with him still trying to adjust to being mortal, because as we've seen, he talks about he's been turned into a mortal 2 other times besides this one. However, the other 2 times he has had his godly powers with him, and this time he has nothing. Literally, he is this scrawny little kid named Lester Papadopoulos, which is hilarious, just by the way, with acne and flab, and he just doesn't know how to deal with it. And I thought that was absolutely hilarious, reading him trying to adjust from being, this gorgeous, like, sculpted god to this flabby little skinny acne-prone freak, like the rest of us, that go through puberty. And I loved his commentary on, simple things in the mortal world. Just, he's like, oh, how could you live with that or do that? Like, how do you guys survive? And it's just really funny because it's like, well, that's just how it is. Like, is there a different way? We've met Apollo a few times throughout the series with Percy Jackson, and he's always seemed like a really chill guy, and he's really self-centered, and we really get to see how self-centered he is in this book, and inside his mind everything revolves around Apollo. And I know he's the sun god, and I know the earth revolves around the sun, but literally not everything revolves around Apollo, and that's all he thinks about is Apollo, 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 my problems, my needs, how to fix my issues, instead of what's going on with the world. There's a new evil force trying to take over the world once again, and there's somebody trying to destroy Camp Half-Blood, but who cares about Camp Half-Blood when Apollo's immortal and has no godly figure? So it was really interesting to read this, and I really did like it. However, after a while, reading in his perspective of just everything revolves around Apollo, it got really annoying to me, and it hurts me to say this because I absolutely love all of Rick Riordan's writings and stuff, but it kind of nagged at me a little bit, and I know it's not really an author issue, it's more of my own personal issue, because it just makes sense with the story that he still has that kind of viewpoint. However, we do get to see him change quite a bit in this book. He goes from always thinking of just Apollo to starting to think about the other people in camp that are helping him and what's going on, and not everything revolves around him. And that was really nice that he's finally getting to see these different changes. He gets to finally see something we've been noticing throughout the Percy Jackson books, that the godly parents, as they do, don't get me wrong, they do care for their demigod children. However, they don't really care that much because they're always throwing them into these battles and on these quests and these near-death experiences, and they really don't care much about what happens to their children. They're just kind of like, oh, go do my dirty work. And we really do get to see this because Apollo explains that one of his children, Henry the 14th, which is called the Sun King, interesting how that plays in, he really liked him, and then during the French Revolution he was worried about his son. So he went in to check on him, and he realized that his son has been dead for decades, and he didn't even realize it. And that just proves how little the godly parents keep up with their children. And he really gets to recognize that, they are people, they do have their own lives, and they totally should not be just thrown into these awful, dangerous missions all the time just because the gods don't want to deal with it themselves. And he definitely gets a mind-opening experience when 2 of his children are kidnapped, and he's really desperate to save them because it's his responsibility as their parent. And it was really refreshing to see that, and I'm hoping that once Apollo does become a god again, he will take that mindset and share it with the other gods and just be like, we really can't keep getting them to do our dirty work and just letting them run off and get killed all the time. They do have their own lives, and they do need to be cared for because they are our children and all of that. So I really hope that rolls over at the end, because we did get slight change with the gods at the end of the first Percy Jackson series. All children must be claimed by their godly parent by, I believe, the age is 13. And so I'm hoping that once Apollo becomes a god again, we'll get another slight change in the gods realize we can't just throw them off to go do all our dirty work and die and just like, you know, not keep up with half of them. Second, we meet this new character named Meg McCaffrey, and she is this street urchin. I'm using Aladdin terms, that's great. Basically, she's a street urchin that saves Apollo as soon as he jumps into this dumpster from these street thugs, and he is now his new master that he has to obey everything she says. And he has talked about in the past times he's been mortals, he has a master and he has to do what they do, and he serves them for a year or so, and then eventually, you know, Zeus forgives him and turns him back into a god. And so he's now attached to this 12-year-old dorky little girl who has mood swings and can go from doing cartwheels down the street to moody and basically a Nico. She's very interesting. We know she's a powerful demigod. She has this fruit spirit, which is a peach spirit, that follows her around whenever she's in trouble. Peaches pops out of nowhere and helps her fight, and so obviously we know she's the daughter of some kind of nature goddess, and I'm just gonna say the chick is pretty badass. Like, she knows how to fight, and she has these two like swords she uses that turn into rings that is like super freaking awesome, and she's pretty badass for a 12-year-old. Like, she kicks Apollo's ass. She's saving his ass all the time. He can't even do anything. And the two of them, they make it to Camp Half-Blood because he's like, she needs to go because she's a demigod anyways, and Apollo needs to go because he needs to talk to Chiron and see if Chiron can figure out how to, you know, help him in his situation. So we get to see how really badass she is, and then we find out she's a daughter of Demeter, and she's obviously very powerful. So Chiron kind of makes this observation about Meg when he first meets her. She is claimed by the Greek version of Demeter. However, a lot of the ways she works things and does things is in the Roman style, and so it's kind of interesting as to why she is that way. And I'm kind of interested, you kind of get interested as to, well, she's lived on the street, but God, this girl has got some training in fighting, and so you kind of wonder what happens there. I really did get getting to know her. She's very funny, and she's definitely a badass. Like, I don't think I've said that enough, but Meg is a badass, like, really badass for a 12-year-old. And her and Apollo obviously get really close, and Apollo actually, like, starts getting attachments to her, and he feels responsible for her. And I really like that because it's really showing him that, like, you know, this is what it's like to be more like, you do care for your friends and your family and you want to protect them and all this stuff. We learn during the three-legged race through the labyrinth, Apollo and Meg are teamed up, and they end up in the cavern of Delphi, where the Oracle of Delphi is housed, and it's been taken over by Apollo's great enemy. And then we hear the voice of this other guy called the Beast, and you can tell from Meg's reaction she knows this guy, and she's terrified because she stands there like basically paralyzed while this guy is talking. And so Apollo's trying to get out of her who this Beast is, and all he can get out of Meg is that the Beast killed her father. And we learn later that the Beast is part of the trio that is trying to take over the world and destroy Camp Half-Blood and basically overrun the gods. And the Beast is actually Emperor Nero, who is the last of the Augustan line, I believe. It's been a really long time since I've taken my Western Civ class, but I do remember talking about him, and so I got really excited because I was like, oh my god, I know this guy, I learned about him. And so we find out that's him, and Nero talks about how he has a reliable source at Camp Half-Blood who's going to have Apollo do his bidding that he needs him to do in order to find this hidden oracle. And I was really like thinking it was somebody else at camp. I was thinking maybe it was that Aries kid, Sherman I believe is his name, which is funny because that's my dog's name. I was believing maybe it was him or maybe some other kid, and it wasn't. It ended up being Meg, and it completely broke my heart because you could really tell that she didn't want to do what Nero wants her to do. She wanted to, she actually wanted to side with Camp Half-Blood and all that stuff, but she can't because she's terrified because Nero has this Beast, which is an alternate personality, which I really don't think is an alternate personality. I believe the guy is just fucking nuts. And she's terrified because she tells Apollo that the Beast killed her father, but her stepfather is the one that gave her the rings and taught her how to fight. turns out Nero is her stepfather, and she stays with him and does his bidding, and she's terrified of this beast that he calls. And it honestly like broke my heart that she like even went with him. Like, she was able to save the grove and his kidnapped victims, but she still went with him. And it kind of like, I want to know why she went with him, because obviously this other personality, or whatever he calls it, the beast, is the one that killed her father, but Nero is her stepfather. But why would you stay with somebody who killed your father? I don't care if it's like an alternate personality, like, I really want to know why she stayed with him. Also, in this book, we get to see more of Nico and Will, and I just want to say that they're so adorable, and I ship them so hard. Like, they're like slowly like coming up on my OTP list. Like, they're like Percabeth is here, and they're like here. Like, they're slowly getting there, because like they're just so freaking adorable, and I loved reading about them. And I think what I love so much about their relationship is that they're complete opposites, and so it's so funny how they deal with each other. And like, they're so adorable. So every time I saw them together, my heart just kind of melts and I get in my feels. I like that we do get to see something, we've never really dealt with this before, but with homosexuality and the gods and how they feel with this with their children. And I believe it's really important that Riordan put this in his book, especially since gays and transgender and stuff are definitely becoming a thing right now in the world, and it's gotten a lot better than it has been in past years, but it's still kind of a sore subject and a tough spot. Like, one of my really good friends is gay, and she told me I was actually one of the first people she came out to, which like warms my heart, because I was like, oh, I just love you so much. And so it's really interesting that he did put some of the issues that we're currently dealing with in his book. And somebody asks him how Apollo feels about his son Will dating Nico, and he just says, he's like, well, you know, he's happy, that's all that matters. Like, it doesn't matter that they're both males, as long as they're happy and they love each other, that's all that matters. And he also brings up something that I've kind of wondered, do gods just, you know, have children with the opposite sex, or what? And Apollo talks about, well, you know, it's really not a big deal that he's with another man, because Apollo himself has had children with other men, because he's attracted to both sexes. And so I thought that was a really interesting idea, because we've never really talked about it. It's just kind of assumed they do with the same sex. And so I thought that was really interesting that they did that. And even one of his children, I believe, I can't remember, one of his children that we do meet in the story, actually, his Apollo, and then his mortal parent is actually his dad too. So I thought that was really interesting, and I like that we got to see that, because it's a totally new perspective we've never seen before. Something else I really like that Riordan did with this book is we don't really see a lot of our favorite old characters from the other two series, but we do get some information about them and what they're up to now. Like Percy, we meet him in the book, and I love this scene where Apollo shows up at his apartment and he's like, oh, Percy Jackson's gonna, you know, bow at my feet and feed me and all this stuff, and he's gonna love me because I taught him everything he knows. And then he comes up and like Percy opens the door and all he says is, why? Like, why now? Like, why? But you know, Percy explains that he's studying for SATs and this giant Roman test he has to take to be able to go to college in New Rome with Annabeth, and he's trying to finish up his senior year because he lost a huge chunk of his junior year when Hera used him as her little play toy. And so we get to see that Annabeth is off somewhere doing something with architecture, and then Piper and Jason are in LA with Piper's dad. Coach Hedge is there. We even get to hear a little bit about some other characters we really haven't dealt with a lot. Like, they're just minor characters, but we still get some more about them. So like Clarice is off at college, and one of the Stoll brothers is off at college too, and the other Stoll brother is still at camp. And so I really like that we got to see that and like know that, you know, they're all okay, they're all alive, they're going forward with their life. It's just really nice and reassuring. But now I feel like that we know that something's gonna happen and we're all gonna be fearing for their lives once again. Okay, so at the end of the book, we see Leo once again, because he comes to the rescue, and him and Calypso are going to help Apollo on his mission to save the rest of the oracles. And it's great because He, like, Leo is just so funny and I love him. However, they've been gone for 6 months, just like Apollo has been gone for 6 months. Since the ending of the war with Dia, they have been not heard from or seen since in like this 6-month period. Obviously, they've been off doing their own adventures. They even talk about some of the things they've done, and really all I want is I just want one book, like, just like do like a combination of novellas of just like their adventures together over that 6 months, because it sounds amazing and I would just love to know what kind of awful shenanigans the two of them got up to. It's so great. Like, I want that so bad. Like, does anybody else want that, or is it just... Also, I really want to know what happens with Apollo, because we see at the end of Blood of Olympus that Apollo is zapped by Zeus, and then obviously he's not heard or seen from in 6 months until he falls into that dumpster, and he's lost all of his memory. He doesn't remember anything from that, like, 6 months. So I really want to know what happened, what was going on. Hopefully we'll get to learn that in the next couple books. Two books. I don't even... Is this a series? Is this a trilogy? What is this? I don't know. I feel like it has to be a series, considering there's, like, 4 or 5 oracles, and they've already saved one, so I think it's maybe like 1 oracle per book. Or maybe Apollo just has a bunch of different trials he has to go to. So anyways, I absolutely loved this book. I cannot wait for the next one. Okay, so like I said, I loved it. It was action-packed just like every other book of Riordan's that I have read. I absolutely loved it. I love this world. I love the characters. I love his writing. Ugh, I can't get enough of Riordan's Percy Jackson world. It's just amazing. Overall, I rated this a 4 out of 5 stars. It pains me to say that I rated it 4 out of 5, but I just, again, it's a personal thing. The way it was just so self-centered, got so annoying so times, because I just felt like Apollo was making so much improvement, and then he just kind of took a step back when he would say stuff like that, and it just kind of like got on my nerves, and it makes me really sad to say this, because I want to rate it a 5 out of 5 like I do with all of my Riordan books that I read, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. But otherwise, it was still insanely amazing. I still loved it, and I totally cannot wait for the next book. Alright, so that is it for this book talk. Sorry I kind of rambled on. It was just a lot going through my mind. Let me know what you thought of the book down in the comments, and we'll chat it up together. Also, all my social media is in the links below if you want to follow me or friend me or whatever. Until then, I am Chrissy. I will see you in my next video. Goodbye!